Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strangest Species. I'm your host, Mike Davis, along with your co-host,
Ethne Davis.
Awesome. You haven't changed your name in a week. I appreciate that.
Or ever.
Well, you have changed your name before.
Well, that's true. My last name, not my first ever.
Me either. Sometimes I think I should have, though.
I mean,
because it's like
you have two different names built in one.
Boringest names of all time.
But you have two names built in one.
What do you mean?
Mike is like an official name, and Michael is like
true.
an official name.
Neither one of your names are like real, but I love them.
Yes.
Yeah. I always call you Ethne Wa. I don't even know the Wa's from Japan, but I don't even know what that means. Like, I just started calling you that when we were in Japan.
I mean, technically it'd be like Ethne-san or Michael-kun, but Ethne Wa. It's like, no, like there's another it's like a, like the ita, like the ita on the end of Spanish words, right. Kind of like that ish. There's not real a true comparison, but similar.
In my phone, you're Ethne Wa.
It's like cutifying it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Right.
I'm cutifying it. So, welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone's had a good week out there in the land of the world.
In the land of the world.
Yeah, it's been good around here. No snow yet, so that makes me happy. No,
that's true. And the wind really blew hard enough to blow my neighbor's tree, or my friend's tree down. But which is good. We need that because all the leaves need to
suck.
What? No, we need all the leaves to come off so that when the snow falls, we don't break branches and limbs.
Yeah, but we don't want the actual trees to fall over.
No. We don't want the tree to fall.
I take that back. I love trees.
Yeah.
But
like your whole...
their tree did fall over.
Yeah.
Not the leaves. The actual tree.
Right. Which is not great.
Not good.
But
okay, so I want to clarify.
But the wind is good to blow the leaves off the trees.
You definitely don't want a bunch of leaves when it snows.
That's true. So, yeah, it's been good
week.
Ethne
and I have been just like little homemakers.
Yeah, we have.
Like crazy the last few weeks.
We're in our fermentation lives.
Yeah. We're learning all sorts of stuff.
About fermenting.
Yeah. Not even like beer or anything either.
Well, not beer at all. Nope. But we've got...
So Ethne's a big kombucha drinker.
Yeah.
She has been for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Years.
I'm not a big fan, but she decided... Why did you decide? She decided
So in the summer, I went to my friend's house.
Oh, that's right.
Remember, in southern Alberta. And she just had this big vat, and it was kombucha. And so she told me the whole thing, and I touched her SCOBY, and it freaked me out. But I loved the taste of her.
Touching anybody's SCOBY should freak you out.
And I loved her flavors of her kombucha. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm really going to do this. So then I let the summer end, and
that'd be a good bumper sticker. Don't touch my SCOBY.
Don't touch my SCOBY. It's an acronym, just like SCUBA.
My SCOBY is bigger than yours.
It stands for not self-contained.
It's not SCUBA.
It stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. That's what it stands for. And so anyway, you guys, if you don't know anything about this, it's the wildest thing ever. But
we've talked about this, I think, once.
Have we?
I think so.
We've had so much fun with it. And so there's that. We're kind of...
But I will say, I'm not a huge kombucha drinker. But the homemade stuff I really, really, really like.
My kids love it.
It's much less bubbly.
Which I like both.
Smoother finish, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. So fancy.
Yeah.
So then we're also fermenting lentils, if you will, and they're sprouting them for the chickens.
They're the worst things ever.
Yeah, they smell
like serious.
They're yucky, but then we're
nastiness.
Fermenting garlic honey. We're doing a ginger bug to facilitate,
bug, which I'd never heard of before,
for root beer, and that's a fermentation project.
That's funny. So we are making this root beer. In my brain, I never knew this. In my brain, root beer was a specific flavor, like it's root beer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's the flavor.
Right.
But when you make a fermentable root beer and you're buying various roots to put into said
concoction,
there's a lot of different roots you can choose. It's not like, oh, root beer flavor.
Right. There's a compilation, I think, of all of these different roots that give that root beer flavor.
Sarsaparilla is the traditional.
Is it sarsaparilla or sassafras? I don't know which one.
Sarsaparilla is the traditional like root beer, quote unquote,
flavor.
But
every recipe has multiple different.
We have sarsaparilla, we have birch bark, we have dandelion root, we have licorice root, we have some star anise,
cinnamon sticks,
and it's really like you're just boiling this giant pot of like bark.
Well, and it turns into essentially a tea.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's really good, and then it has to ferment, and
then you need this ginger bug to ferment it.
It's wild. The whole process.
Apparently, ginger has natural yeast in its skin, and that's what ferments it.
Well, you have to put a little bit of sugar in there to feed.
Right. But I mean, that's the only external yeastifying product in there.
That's what. Yep.
So we'll see what it tastes like.
Yeah, we're
got about a week and a half
doing it in preparation for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And then I also bought a food dehydrator.
Oh, we've been dehydrating food like
let's
crazy.
Dehydrate this thing and see what. So
my kids are super into that.
Yeah.
We're
just fun, though.
It has been fun. Yep. All sorts of stuff going on in our kitchen lately.
It's the season when it gets dark at 4:30.
This is not what most people are doing in their kitchens, I don't think.
That's true. Well, we have two kids that we have two kids in normal school and two kids that homeschool in a outdoor school, which means there is no school. They just go hang out in the forest.
Well, they do a lot of school things there.
They do a lot of school things, but there's no school.
Oh no, like a physical building?
No, they just hang out in the forest.
Well, there are little outposts and shelters and stuff. There is a building if they really need to go inside. But yeah. You're right.
So it's right up their alley.
It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you, Anthony, that I think about all the time. I think most people think about all the time, but I'll ask you. Have you ever thought what it would be like to be in a nuclear blast?
I don't think about it often, but definitely when we were in Hiroshima, obviously, like I thought about this whole process of what that would be like if it was on our soil and kind of putting myself in different scenarios. I don't think about it often, but it does come to my mind.
Yeah, I was totally joking. I don't ever think about that.
Oh, yeah, I definitely
don't think a lot of people do. I mean, with everything going on in the world the last couple of years.
Well, and my son's most recent project, he did a project on Oppenheimer. Mm-hmm. And he is essentially the father of the nuclear bomb. So then just with dealing with him, I've been thinking about it a little bit more, like the fallout and you're from Hanford. You grew up in Hanford, whereas one of the nuclear, it's like nuclear sites that helped fabricate, right? Enrich the plutonium for the nuclear bombs that were dropped. So it's kind of, been not a common topic, but like a topic that we have
for sure
been around and had to contemplate, right?
Yeah, for sure. And as our son, like she was saying, did this project, and it was really fascinating because he made this big board comparing today's nuclear bombs to the 1945 ones that were used. And it visually shows the size of the mushroom clouds. And the ones from Hiroshima and Nagasaki were like...
They look tiny now
on the chart, they're like 2 inches tall. Mount Everest is like 2 inches tall. And the Tsar Bomba from Russia is like 1.5 feet tall.
And for those that don't know what the Tsar Bomba is...
It's the biggest nuclear bomb that's ever been tested.
Ever been tested,
or actually used,
but just tested, not used on humans,
right? But it has actually been
tested, which I don't know how you.
Well, they got Siberia, man. You can drop a whole bunch of crap out there.
The frozen wastelands.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay,
that's why Yachtlift Pass happened.
Right.
When we talked about that, that's not why that actually happened.
No,
but yeah, it's an interesting thought where. And our son did a similar thing where he showed this map of, okay, if someone dropped a Nagasaki or Hiroshima-sized bomb on Spokane, where we live, what would be the blast radius?
And the fallout, too.
Right. And the actual blast radius isn't that big. the people that are going to get vaporized, and even in Hiroshima and Nagasaki was the same thing. It's
actually
the miles,
right? The fallout,
right,
and
that get hit with the large amounts of radiation, but don't actually get killed by the bomb,
which is actually worse.
Well, way worse. Yeah.
It's kind of terrible.
Yeah, it is. And so then I think more about those kinds of things when it comes to an atomic bomb blast. It's like, okay, if we're going to get bombed, let me be in the epicenter versus 6 miles from the epicenter. Or maybe that's too far. Maybe 2 miles. I don't know how far, especially with the modern bombs and stuff.
Who knows?
So we're going to talk a little bit today about radiation poisoning and a story of radiation poisoning. As always, if you're new, welcome. But Ethne doesn't ever know what we're talking about. So she's along for the ride with all of you. I'm the only one who gets a key to the car here of what we're talking about. Right.
Yep.
One day it'd be fun if we flip the script.
Okay. I don't know what your script would look like, but we could fake it one time.
It'd be funny.
Like opposite day.
Yeah, maybe like the 1 year anniversary or something.
Let our daughter host it or something.
Yeah. So last week I did also put out a challenge to everybody about a YouTube channel. It did go up, but obviously having very few videos, the YouTube algorithm makes it very challenging to find. So I will keep posting videos, and they're cool, similar topics to what we're doing here. But I won't say anything about that YouTube channel probably for another 4 or 5 months until it starts garnishing some traffic on its own. And then I'll bring it up again here and send all you after it.
Can you at least post a link?
Yeah, I can post a link in the show. I did post a link in last week's show notes. It's funny. You can't make it a clickable link. You actually would have to copy it, paste it, put it in the browser, go that way. And then I filmed this video. I really liked it. It was 25 minutes long. And then the audio file didn't transfer over. And I was like, shoot, I got to get this up because people know it's coming up. So I recorded this totally different thing. It was 7 minutes. It's not at all what it was supposed to be.
What you originally planned. But
it was all good. It was fun.
Well, good.
I like
learning
doing
curves.
This junk and just learning on the fly.
Yeah, learning curves.
Yeah. So today's story, we're going back in time, not too far.
Okay.
1999.
Oh, not far at all.
Not far at all.
Okay.
To Japan. And we are going to a town of, you can correct my pronunciation here, Ethne, Tokiamura.
Tokiamura is pretty good, I think.
Thanks. I didn't even practice.
Well, good.
So in Tokiamura, they had this nuclear conversion plant.
Okay.
So it was not a energy producing plant. It did other nuclear things. I don't know what other nuclear things exist, but one of the things they did there was they were the factory that created the fuel rods that the other nuclear plants used to generate power.
Okay.
I don't know what exactly that all means, but
there's someone out there that definitely does.
I know someone who is a nuclear engineer who listens, who probably knows exactly what we're talking about.
We should have them be a guest.
Yeah, but I don't know. So that's what this plant did. Now, it had been 3 years since the plant had made any nuclear fuel rods.
Okay.
When our story takes place. So because of this, there was no trained staff on making these fuel rods.
Because it had been so long?
Right.
Okay.
It was just kind of okay, we do these 20 things here at the factory. You show up for work, you're going to get assigned to something.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start making these fuel rods again.
Because we've got an order placed.
Right. So today, Joe, Ted, and Fred, you guys are on fuel rod making.
Those are very non-Japanese names.
Correct. This was more for
I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I can understand. For an example.
Provoking example, yes.
I get it. I was giving you a hard time.
I understand. It's easy. You're always picking on me.
I know, always.
So, so they didn't have anyone, like I said, that was specifically trained. This is their only job. This is what they do all the time. It was just whoever was there that day got the job. So here's the procedure of how you make these fuel rods, dumbed down to 3rd grade level.
I like that because
not
that's what
for you guys, for me. I'm trying to write this.
No, for me too.
So they take uranium powder and think of it like a big, I'm going to say like a bathtub. Obviously it's not, but there's this big open vat that they would pour the uranium in. Powder in. And it was some kind of acid. I don't remember what kind of acid it was, in this large container. That was then pumped into this large cylinder that was maybe like 8 feet tall. Now, the purpose of that cylinder was it would regulate the uranium and keep it from going critical or exploding, becoming active, radioactive, all those kind of things, right? And then as it would go through this large, so you almost think of this large container almost like sifting it out in the proper units, make sure that it was all where it should be. And then that giant or that tall cylindrical container would pour it into another mixing vat where it would be constantly regulated. And then from there, it would go on the process, however that worked.
Okay. So
the approved concentration for this uranium was 5%. That was the I don't know if the global standard, but the Japanese standard and the industry standard. So a few years before the event that we're going to talk about today, the plant had changed its policies so that the uranium could be mixed by hand rather than poured directly into the dissolution tank.
Okay.
Now, this was against the law and against, what's the word I'm looking for?
OSHA?
Well, yeah, whatever the Japanese version of OSHA is.
Yeah.
But also just against industry standards. It was illegal and it was also just not good practice.
So why did they change it to say that you could?
Probably because it was cheaper or more efficient or something along those lines.
Okay.
Maybe they didn't even know. I mean, I have a hard time believing that, but they haven't done it in, so long. Like maybe they were kind of dabbling in areas of nuclear things that they were like, oh yeah, we could do this. And they didn't really know. I don't know. So that's where we are, where our story starts.
Okay.
We have 3 men who come to work. I don't know 2 of their names, but our main character his name is Hisashi Ouchi. And 2 other techs. So they're given the job of making fuel rods today. So they go in. Now the plant was already 2 days behind on their delivery of these fuel rods. So it was like, we need you guys to get to it. We got to make these rods. There was a lot of pressure on them to pump them out. And so the guys changed the procedure, even they tweaked it to go faster. Now, I don't know if that was them on their own or if
the superior said to do something. So, okay.
But this is how they tweaked their procedure. Instead of mixing it by hand and pouring it into that first open tank, the bathtub style tank, they mixed it by hand and they opened the top of that large cylindrical tank and they poured it directly into that cylindrical tank that's designed to regulate the uranium. The other major issue they had was instead of using 5% uranium, they used 18%.
This just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Not on an episode or show like this, Ethne.
Yeah.
Everything's going to go really well.
Yeah, okay. I'm getting nervous for them. But I feel like they're so much smarter than that. I mean, like, you don't mess around with this crap.
Well, yeah. I mean, the opening scene of The Simpsons, I mean, he gets the nuclear rod, like, lands on him and he takes it home.
The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing else I can say besides that.
He's not a Simpsons fan.
I mean, it's dumb. No, that's not anyway.
That's a fair assessment, isn't it? No? Okay.
To love-hate.
Okay. Fair enough. So, they tweak these things. Not in the greatest of ways, probably.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
So, they're pouring it in the top of this cylindrical tank, right? One of them is standing up on like a little step ladder. And Oishi's leaning up against the tank, kind of pouring it in over his head, like down down the container. They're doing this. They're working, being good, diligent workers, trying to get this done. They've put about 40 liters inside of this tank of this highly concentrated uranium when all of a sudden the radiation alarm goes off.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And before any of them can even do anything, boom, all three of them report this bright blue flash inside the tank. And what had happened is the uranium mixture had produced so much heat that it had started this self-sustaining nuclear reaction. And it went active, or whatever the word is, and it blew this blue, fiery cloud of radiation into the room. So Ouchi and another guy were there on the platform pouring in. The third guy was over on a computer kind of monitoring things. So a lethal dose of radiation is considered 5,000 millisieverts. Ouchi, because he was leaning against it, received a blast of 17,000 millisieverts.
Okay.
It's more than 3 times the lethal dose instantaneously.
But he doesn't die.
Well, the others received a blast of 10,000 and 3,000 millisieverts. So even the other guy got double, and the other guy not quite. But yeah, so he gets 3.5-ish times a lethal dose. I mean, just imagine, like, instantly, boom. I mean, just the amount of radiation just flies through your body. There's nothing to slow that down or stop it. And so pretty instantly, all the guys begin just vomiting uncontrollably.
Right.
Massive headaches. Obviously something terrible's happened. So they rush them to the hospital. You can see footage of it out there. They arrive in like full hazmat suits.
They would have to. I mean,
but the hospital that takes them in isn't wearing hazmat suits. But the guys from the plant
wearing, yeah.
So Ouchi goes in. They know what's happened. The hospital does. They have word before he gets there. But when the doctors meet him, they can't believe he's received
that much,
a 3 times lethal dose of radiation, because he looks pretty normal. His skin's kind of red, like he's been sunburned.
Okay.
But he's very pleasant. He's very friendly. He's seeming very relatively normal.
Okay.
And some of the nurses even think like, this is like the craziest miracle ever. Like, he's totally fine. Like, I don't see why he can't like go home later today. I mean, he's got some issues acutely, like some burns and stuff, but he seems pretty normal, which is great, right?
Yeah, but I feel like too good to be true.
Yeah. So what do you think could be, I mean, when you say that, like, whoa. Let's just play like hypothesis here.
Well, shouldn't he have just in theory died if they're saying the lethal dose is 5,000 and he got 17,000? Why is he not dead? Number one, right?
And no one, to my knowledge,
and even the 7,000 guy
has ever received this much in a controlled setting, right?
Sure. I don't know if it matters what setting you're in.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're standing in Hiroshima and you receive 17,000 millisieverts, you're in a war zone, you're going to die. If you're in a nuclear power plant full of, computers and protocols, and you receive that, they're going to get you to the hospital, they're going to monitor it. Like, there's a totally different.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like in a.
Sure.
I don't know if there's ever been anybody who's received that much.
Like a lethal dose, to me, that's like, you are going to die. You don't have the time to it doesn't matter if you have hospital care or not. Like, you're essentially dead. Almost maybe instantly, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what they define as a lethal dose. Like, what happens with a lethal dose.
And I think some of these nurses thought the same thing, right? And even Ouchi was a little in that same, like, am I going to develop like leukemia?
Right.
Like, am I going to?
Yeah, totally.
Very quickly, like, what's going to happen? And
yeah.
So the doctors go and they look at his chromosomes. You can map out chromosomes.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And they're very similar. Like yours, mine, they're all going to map out 21. They look a certain way, which ones are which, So they do this on him, and that's when they realize what the problem is.
Okay.
So his chromosomes are completely obliterated. Like they've just been fried, they're twisted, they're abnormal, there's nothing left of the chromosomes inside of his cell. Now I won't put you on the spot, but do you remember how this all works? Like from a biology,
the double helix and the
so inside your chromosomes,
and all of these things.
You have essentially what are called codons.
Yeah.
These little tags, blueprints, we'll say, that print everything your body needs. They get transcribed, and then your cells make whatever the thing you need is. Muscles, skin, fluid, whatever, And those are the blueprints. So without those blueprints, there would be no
cell replication.
Yeah. Now your body replicates its cells all the time.
Right. So he's going to die pretty quick.
So that's what it is. So he looks healthy because the radiation didn't affect his current cells, but he has no way, they realize, of ever replacing any of these cells. The machinery for replacing any cell in his body is gone.
Right. Because that's what the purpose of DNA is.
Right.
Okay.
So he literally is going to just start falling apart.
So can you do, like, in that moment, a blood transfusion that would put in new DNA? I guess not blood. I don't know, like, what avenue you would, plasma, or what has the most, maybe all of it, all kinds of fluids to get new DNA put back into your body. Is that even possible? Because all of our DNA has the same codon. I mean, there's only like how many?
Yeah, you have your age is 4.
Yeah, there's only 4 codons. So it's like, can you somehow...
there's 4...
Major one.
I don't remember codons. Because codons like the group of 3 pairs of the 4.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, there's only 4, essentially. The A's, the G's, the C's, and the T's.
Yes, whatever they all stand for. Yeah. Anyway, so is there a way to get them back into your body to then start them up again?
So you're thinking really good here. Like these are a lot of the same thoughts that the doctors were having, like how can we replace essentially his genome, his DNA.
And I almost wonder, like, depending on whose DNA you get, you become a totally different person or what?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. If you got someone,
if that's even DNA, a possibility, I don't even know.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's an interesting thought that intrigues me. It'd be a good story.
I mean, maybe it's out there somewhere, but
so there wasn't really a procedure for this. There was a groundbreaking kind of revolutionary procedure where they could transfer stem cells and see if you could get them to take from a donor. A few issues. It had never been done before. And you had to have the perfect donor. Well,
that's what I was wondering. It's not like you're trying to match a blood type.
Blood transfusion.
Right. You're trying to. So how do you even...
So we'll get there in a second.
Okay. Sorry, I'm jumping.
No, it's good. These are good thoughts. I like it. So the first thing that happened is that his white blood cell just dropped.
So he can't fight any...
So he can't fight anything. This would be similar to having, AIDS or HIV. Your white blood cells are your immune system. They are what fights off
bad
bacteria, things like that. They dropped to only about 10% of what they should be.
Oof.
And so he became very vulnerable to any kind of...
It's to live in a bubble.
A common cold will kill you at that level. Yeah. So they kind of isolated him. And as they came up with the same plan, kind of like, there's some way that we can do this. So they came up with this treatment, this revolutionary one that we just spoke about. And just so happened that his sister was the perfect donor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But how are you donating?
I don't know.
What are you donating? Okay, this is so curious to me. Okay.
I don't know. So they they do the transplant, however that works, but it takes a while, and they know it's going to take a while for
your body to
integrate and start.
But even then, you'd think the radiation exposure would maybe destroy the ability for your body to even be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
And people didn't know, right?
You just got to try.
He literally was the first one ever to receive this.
Right. So you just got to try.
So you just got to try. So over the next couple days, though, while they're waiting for this to kind of kick in, his skin literally just starts falling off.
Does he bleed?
Well, we'll get to kind of all that. But yeah, it's so they start bandaging up these lesions.
Oh my gosh.
His skin's falling off. But every time they take the bandages off, they're pulling off more skin with the bandages. It's worse than before. So they quickly realize, okay, we can't use any bandages on him. Like, we've got to stop doing that. And his lungs also begin filling with fluid. Like, those membranes and stuff are breaking down. And so he's got to be put on a respirator. But 10 days later, the doctors can finally see that his sister's stem cells have taken. And again, I don't know what the procedure is for looking at chromosomes.
But whatever, they can see it's starting to take.
And I saw a picture of it, and you can see, where the dyes are. Like, okay, there's his sister's chromosomes, and they're healthy looking. And
wow.
And miraculously, they were present. And over the next few days, his white blood cells come all the way back to normal.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like I said, this is the first time it's ever been used.
Right.
And such a crazy case, and it worked.
Wow.
And so everyone was really pumped. He still had issues. I would assume almost like a burn victim. He's gone through so much skin cells. He's not out of the clear yet, but it seems like, okay, well, at least now maybe we can get his cells
back up and running.
And we can take care of these issues, and hopefully things, work out for the best down the road. And so, but a few weeks later, he kind of takes a spin for the worse, and his skin starts falling off again.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound pleasant. I mean, just pain-wise and stuff.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the doctors are confused. Like, okay, this was working. Everything was going well. Like, why all of a sudden why are we going back to the same boat? So they do an endoscopy, where they stick a camera up
inside of you,
the other side.
Yeah.
And they go through and they're looking at his intestines and stuff, and all of his mucous membranes inside
have ruptured.
Well, they've turned white. They're dead.
Ugh.
And so they know this is a big issue because that's where you absorb all of your nutrients and stuff. And he's not getting anything now.
Yeah.
And so now they're confused. Like, well, what's happened? The cells were working. Now all of a sudden they're not working. So they go back and they look at him because this promising treatment that seemed to be saving the day all of a sudden failed. And we'll get there in a second what they find, but now Ouichi's starting to have severe stomach pain.
Oh, I can only imagine.
And he begins to discharge 3 liters of diarrhea every day.
Ugh.
It's a lot of diarrhea.
Gosh, this poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. Like, literally his skin's falling off.
Yeah.
He's bleeding from the inside, Yeah. That's a lot. 3 liters?
It's a lot.
Like, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's, I'm trying to think.
Like, do all of his organs just turn into mush, kind of?
I don't know.
Oof,
but
okay.
So after 3 weeks,
well, what can possibly be coming? I mean, I'm trying to think of what is.
It's probably just water.
Just water,
and like it's in blood and
okay, interesting. Okay,
but after 3 weeks of this, like, I'm trying to think of some of the worst nights of pain I've ever been in, and you get through like 12 hours.
Well, how do you even do pain management for this?
Yeah, I mean, he's on heavy narcotics.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be, but ugh. Okay.
I mean, I was in really, really bad pain once, twice in the same issue, and I got put on IV morphine both times. And it was like the best thing ever. But it worked. Like, you know, it was.
But it also made you feel really weird and heavy, like
very heavy.
Pressure on your
chest. It's like
chest.
you're floating with like an iron blanket on you.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's weird. Okay.
But all you druggies out there know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
Where were we?
Well, we were
lots of diarrhea.
Yeah. And so after 3 weeks of this.
His stomach was bleeding so badly that he started needing daily transfusions. And sometimes we're talking up to 10 transfusions a day.
Of blood?
Of blood.
Oof.
So he's literally like, his skin's falling off, but he's also like melting from the inside. And so they go and they look at these what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. His sister's chromosomes, you know, like what's happening here. And what they found was, even though his sisters had taken and they were working, his own body still had received so much radiation that they were irradiating the new cells and killing them and twisting those chromosomes as well.
So they were like transferring the radiation.
Yeah, like they were so radioactive still that nothing new could go in without just getting annihilated and radio affected themselves.
Right.
And so now they're really like, okay, back to square one. You know, what can we do? And you're trying to palliatively treat the pain and the discomfort and things like that. But it's just, one, you've never had a patient like this. And two, it's just progressing so fast. So with all of his skin falling off, at this point, he's losing about 10 liters of fluid a day through diarrhea and bleed, but also just literally through
seeping.
Like I'm trying to think of wounds. Yeah, like sometimes you get wounds and like burns or something, and they just
kind of
seep.
Oh
so,
gosh.
Yeah, this is happening everywhere in his body. And so this was the problem right now. Like, it wasn't the long-term problem that had to be solved, but it was the acute problem that they had to address right then. And so their first thought was, we're going to have to wrap him almost like a mummy and try to just keep all of these liquids in. And how do you think that went?
Probably terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was like, putting toilet paper on like a wet something.
Oh gosh.
He just went right through it.
Ugh.
And so they quickly realized, that's not going to work. Within hours, the gauze would just be useless.
Yeah. And I still feel like it's better than nothing though.
Well, it's probably true, but they knew this wasn't going to be a long-term solution.
Just put him in a big plastic sac and just let him sit in his own liquid. And then it would just like osmosis back into him.
That's an interesting thought.
I don't
know how sterile that would be.
Probably not, but I mean.
But I like the osmosis bag.
Well, with a hole for your poopy. So you're not sitting in your own poopiness. All that goes out, but just all your skin liquid and stuff, you're just sitting in it.
The osmosis bag with a poop hole. I think you're onto something.
I'm just trying. Yes, I'm trying to think of how you can.
What would you call your osmosis bag?
I don't know. I just was thinking of options. That's all.
It'd be smelly.
But I don't know if it's just your skin seepage.
Oh, it'd be so gross.
But would it be that bad?
Yeah, it would.
I don't really know.
I think.
I don't know. I can't picture literally what it would be like to be like, just have your skin falling off and you're seeping. It just is a hard thing to picture. So anyway.
It is a hard thing to picture. You're definitely accurate about that. So at this point, his eyelids have fallen off.
Oh.
So he can't close his eyes.
Oh, and then his eyes get all dry.
His eyes get super dry. So you're constantly having to apply.
Like spray. It's probably just better to die at this point, honestly.
It's 100% better to die at this point. And I think it opens up some serious ethical and medical dilemma questions.
Yeah, for sure.
You're Canadian. Canada's passed some serious assisted suicide laws recently, and it's a very big gray area.
For sure.
You know, there's definitely patients like Ouchi that are very terminal and never going to come back, where I think, yeah, this sounds like a wonderful gift we could give him, you know? Where there's other patients that it's definitely not the right choice for. And I hate the idea of the government being the ones who get to control or have a say in it, you know? Especially if they're paying for it and it's like, oh, it's way cheaper to kill you than to keep you alive for the next 40 years. But that's a whole other topic. But I agree with you. Like, the outlook's not good here.
Yeah.
But they can't just go in and, like, kill him.
No, I think he'll die soon enough anyway.
So, but he is in heavy, heavy pain, obviously. Like, just searing pain constantly.
Yeah.
And the family, he has a wife, he has a kid. You know, they want the doctors to do anything they can to try to save him. I mean, they're not experts on any of this stuff.
Right.
I would assume at this point, I mean, it's been a few weeks, that you would have guessed like they're not coming back from this. But, you know, people have different concepts of death and saying goodbye and not being able to, you know, come to terms with that. So anyways, the mummy bandages weren't working. So the next step was to do full body skin grafts.
Sounds very expensive.
It does sound very expensive. And I don't even know where you get all that skin from.
That's true. It's a good point.
Is it artificial skin?
I don't know.
Is it cadaver skin?
I would assume cadaver.
Or does it have to come from a live host? So they have to take small patches at a time?
I mean, oftentimes for your own skin grafting or tissue grafting, it's from a donor site. But if all of your skin is falling off, then you don't have a donor site. I don't even know how you would choose something that would be your body would be receptive of. So I don't even know what that would look like. Almost like a stem cell, like a
grow some new skin.
Yeah, like a stem cell skin transplant, because
maybe that Utah company, New Skin.
Very different.
I don't even know what that is. I just saw a college basketball game the other day, and they were the big sponsor of the arena.
Oh, my friend Brittany was very into New Skin my whole life, so I know all about it. So it's not for this show. It's just like facial products and
gotcha. Not for radiation.
Definitely, victims? No, not.
That's good, because I don't know that the market would be very big for that, especially in Utah.
Probably not. But I guess with the amount of cell phones now, maybe we're all really exposed.
It would be a funny commercial. Like, have you been exposed to radiation poisoning? Call New Skin. I don't think anyone would call.
I really don't think so either.
So, they go over the skin grafts. That's the next plan.
Okay.
They thought, okay, we can get some skin on him. Maybe we can hold these liquids in. And again, it's not going to save him, but that might buy us enough time to figure out what we can do long term. But the skin grafts wouldn't take.
Of course they would.
It's just way too wet. You know, like it's one thing if you're covering a little hole versus
totally
the whole outfit.
That's what I was saying is like, how do you even do this?
So they just literally fell right off. And so back to that. Now, we are 2 months in.
Okay.
Ouchi is in nonstop terrible pain. He's on a machine to assist his breathing. I don't know if he's on a respirator or a ventilator. Like, what exactly? He has no skin, relatively. He has no eyelids. He's literally decaying from the inside and outside, alive. It's a terrible existence. But due to the constant blood transfusions, a new problem arises.
Oh, gosh.
Can you think what it would be?
I don't.
And I don't know anything about blood transfusions, but they say it's because of them. But his heart was pumping at about 120 beats per minute all the time, which is the equivalent of like running a marathon.
Yeah.
So his heart's pumping just crazy hard.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it's because he's losing so much blood.
Yeah, I don't know.
That it's trying to get through there, or if the transfusions actually do elicit like tachycardia, you know, and get you pumping harder. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But he's essentially, as he's lying there, it's like he's working out insanely hard as far as his heart goes.
Poor guy.
And so he has a heart attack. Like his heart stops. He just can't take the load anymore. Now you would think this would be a blessing because it's going to kill him, right?
I would assume
it's going to end him. You can't live without a heart pumping blood to you. But, and this is where we get into another really strange, litigious conversation. He had never signed a do not resuscitate. And so being in the hospital, they were by law obligated to try to resuscitate him. And so they go full CPR, they give him meds for his heart. They're shocking him. They're trying to revive him, even though I'm sure he's like, don't revive me, I mean, he's not thinking that in the moment, but from a external viewpoint, and they do successfully get his heart pumping again. Now, in this process, it starts and stops 3 times. So he does end up having a fair amount of other organ damage after this, but they bring him back to life. But at this point, he's essentially a vegetable. Like, he's had enough brain damage from the lack of oxygen from the multiple attempts to revive him that he's essentially, at this point, machines are keeping him alive. So the doctors sit down with the family and explain, like, next time he has a heart attack, we should just let him go. So they sign a do not resuscitate. And not long after that, on the 83rd day from that accident, his heart stops and he passes away. So 83 days of what many have deemed the most painful and terrible death known to man.
This poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy story.
Yeah.
And it brings up tons of, and we don't have time for these issues, but tons and tons of just,
well, it's hard in those situations,
and moral,
Well, and I almost wonder if you think like, maybe some miracle could happen where, like you said, his sister's, transfusion or whatever the word for chromosome, stem cell, whatever might work, or, so you want to give it enough time to feel like you haven't given up. But where's that line? It's just tricky. Yeah.
It is tricky. And even going back to the day it happened. Okay, so we don't have trained staff that does this. We don't have the right procedure. We're speeding it up. There's so many factors that added to all these thoughts, or not thoughts, but all these little actions that make, one mistake, boom, in an instant, everything's changed forever.
Right. I wonder what happened with the other 2 guys too.
Yeah, I thought about that. I you could probably find out. I never went and looked. I mean, the other guy got a double dose.
Right.
And very well he passed away too, just without all of the crazy story part of it. I don't know. I should go look that up.
And I wonder if like the 3,000, sorry, if he, had any weird or strange, I mean, I'm assuming he would.
Yeah, I think he has 3 ears now.
Oh, sure.
I think that's what I read.
Yeah. That's not so bad. I would take that, I suppose.
Over the alternative.
I would rather have like 3 arms. Might look weirder, but it'd be way more handy.
Well, if it's functional. If it's just like a vestigial arm, then.
Sure. No, it'd have to be a very functioning arm. Yeah.
But all along that road, there were lots of moments, where.
I bet they learned.
Well, that's another. I
like
had that
a
same
lot
thought too.
in the process of, things that you would never ever try in research. That you just do the best you can with this in a situation, and they probably learned a lot. So
we had this successful transfer of stem cells that ultimately didn't work, but not because the procedure didn't work, because his body was a walking
radiation. I wonder how the people treating him like didn't have exposure too.
Yeah, and it's funny because I watched a few, not documentaries, that's too generous of a word, but these small little 15-minute things on it and stuff. And they interview quite a few of the nurses and doctors, and they make it seem very, like, none of them ever once talk about the radiation side of it, or any of the precautions, or any of the having to deal with that.
Well, you would just think that he would be.
Oh, for sure.
Like
obviously.
radioactive himself. And so getting close to him.
But that's interesting too, because...
Or would his body just absorb it all and he wouldn't really be able to transfer that?
Yeah, I think that's probably more true because the half-life of radiation isn't really that long.
I guess that's true.
Like gamma radiation. So if you think of it, all electromagnetic radiation is just waves of energy, right? Mm-hmm. Starting from the weakest, which are radio waves, working down to gamma radiation, which are super small wavelengths and really, really fast frequency, right? And so because of that, they penetrate things very easily, but they don't have a lot of shelf life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so maybe he really wasn't that not contagious. That's not the right word, but
contagious. Though.
Yeah, I guess contagious is the best.
You're right. It's not the right word, but it does a good job describing what you're trying to say.
Interesting.
So I wonder if it's just like his got fried so bad,
right? But then after a couple of days,
right, said radiation,
he probably wasn't really.
Because I think even if you had like a nuclear blast from a bomb at your house, you're pretty safe pretty quick from the radiation of the bomb. Like if you hid in your basement, or something, pretty quickly.
Yeah, interesting.
It's all the stuff around that and the dusts and kicking up stuff that becomes highly problematic.
Right.
Afterwards. It's not the actual blast, or.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm no nuclear physicist.
Well, I feel sad for their family, but I also feel sad for him that he had to suffer for
that's the kicker.
so long. Yeah, that's hard.
That just really, it's a terrible way to go.
Yeah, really. I can't even imagine, really.
No.
So.
And you wouldn't. Yeah. And they never talked much about how cognizant he was through it. Mm-hmm. Was he awake and alert for all of it or...
Right.
Or not.
Yeah.
They did make it seem like I guess he was responsive to things. So I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a different story than we normally cover.
Yeah, it is.
Normally I like to have a little more humor mixed in, but I felt very irreverent trying to add a lot of humor to someone suffering.
Yeah.
Other than your osmosis bag with a poop hole.
I think it's a great idea.
It's a wonderful idea. Practicality, I don't know.
When you're trying to do the best you can, you just try things, see if they work, The osmosis of it going back into their...
a big, black garbage bag for raking leaves.
No, it would be clear. It would be clear.
Well, that makes all the difference then.
Yeah.
I'm on board now.
Okay, perfect.
Alrighty. Well, everybody, I think that's going to about cover it for this week.
All right.
So I will purposely try to find something a little more lighthearted next week.
And you will also purposely do something funny for your little short YouTube thing. But we're not really talking about it right now. But it's still out there in the universe.
Yeah, I'm going to do a video and a YouTube short and a video. A short video and a YouTube short. 2 separate things, but same words. Go figure. I think I'm going to do the next one on our buddy Carl, who was married to a dead corpse for 9 years or whatever.
Yeah, that one's... Yeah, you should. Ugh. Just thinking about him, he's special.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Everyone have a good week. Ethne and I are going to be some serious fermenting this week. And we will...
wrestling and volleyball and plays.
So much stuff.
Yeah, so many things.
So.
All right,
everyone have a wonderful week. Stay strange, and we will talk to you next week.
Mm-hmm. See you later.
Bye. Thank you.